tradition. It's very interesting, Judeo-Christian. I think there's probably, can I make a prediction for you?
Sure.
Seeing as you're a Christian, a practicing Christian, and I'm kind of a Christian. I'm not a Christian, but
I agree with you. I would say I'm probably a Christian too.
Thank you. I love Jesus. Oh, what a
Yeah,
guy.
I do too.
Oh man, I love him. I would love to, get on a motorcycle and go for a ride with Jesus out into
Yeah,
the hills.
you said he's your favorite thinker.
Yes, by far, by far. Every time they tried to trick him, he responded with brilliant.
He was so smart. Yeah, so smart.
In fact, you might even say to a point, maybe too smart, because his response to Pontius Pilate was probably not, it was very funny and clever. It's you who called me that. Instead of saying, no, I've never said that. I am not that. I'm innocent. He didn't say that.
Right.
He already had accepted the fate that he knew was coming.
Yes.
He knew that it was, and he knew the people. He knew that when it was a choice between Barabbas and himself, he knew they'd choose Barabbas. He knew this would happen.
Yes.
And so on.
And he didn't speak in the trials because I think he knew, what could he say that would change anything? I think that's why he was silent in the trials. It's like
many people are. Many people, do you have anything to say before we pass sentence? And many times they'll just shake their head and say no, because they know it's inevitable they're going to get whacked. They don't have the super rich lawyer. They don't have the, bags of money to help them. But just getting back to the prediction, I think a time will come, and I'm not the first to say this, that when the Christian churches focus exclusively on the Gospels, the New Testament is this tiny in a Bible that's this big. And the New Testament is this tiny, tiny thing of pages. But for me, it's everything that I want to hear, that I want to live by, and so on, and has enough mystery in it to keep me entertained for the whole of my life so far. And I think there'll be a movement toward detaching from the Old Testament and saying, this book is part of our tradition and it's over here and we're not putting it in the rubbish bin, but our focus is on the life and example and words of Jesus. And for me, you can't go wrong.
I completely agree. And, traditional churches have done a number on Jesus's teachings. They've kind of twisted them in so many ways. So, yes. But he, from my perspective, and I know people have different views of Jesus, but to me, he was the Christ man that he imbued and held the Spirit of God within him to such an extent that people thought he was God. And he also said, but this is something you all can have. This is something for all of you. And I think his work was about love and unconditional love and forgiveness. And here is the path to that. And it's been twisted to something completely different that causes people to feel guilty and horrible and shame and all this stuff. But his message was so empowering.
Oh, of course. Yeah, absolutely. And revolutionary.
Yes.
In that context, that one of the reasons why they crucified him, because his message was literally, it didn't just overturn the tables of the moneylenders, it overturned the ideology that was prevalent at the time, which was an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And suddenly someone comes along and says, turn the other cheek, and so on. There's definitely some Eastern mysticism in his teaching that cannot have originated in the environment of the hothouse environment of an occupied Jerusalem with a massive army controlling it, and everyone sort of where do you stand on this? And we have to do this, we have to do this is wrong, and so on. Under that oppression, and you can see that at that time, but that message, that it could not have fermented from that oppression and that difficulty and from the traditions they had. It's a new message, and it came from somewhere, and it strikes me, much of it is a kind of Eastern mysticism. The missing years of Jesus from 12 to 30 are fascinating. Yeah. Where did he go?
There's also the theory or the hypothesis that he was an Essene, and that the Essenes had a lot of these different teachings as part of their group. And so, because if you look at it in the New Testament, he always talks about the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and he doesn't mention the Essenes. And his teachings from the Dead Sea Scrolls, a lot of his teachings are very similar to what are in some of those Dead Sea Scrolls. And why aren't the Dead Sea Scrolls out in the world? I think they're being hidden. But anyway.